There is 1 month left until my honeymoon with Clara, and the resort reservations have already been confirmed. However, what I never expected was waking up to a text message that shattered everything. Clara had decided she did not want to marry me anymore. The woman I had loved for 3 years, the woman I had planned my entire future with, had just walked away without even a proper conversation. She sent a single line that morning while I was packing our bags. "I am sorry, Jimmy, I cannot do this anymore. I deserve better." I stood there in our shared apartment, surrounded by half-packed suitcases, holding my phone like it was some kind of cruel joke. My hands were shaking. The resort in Maldives was booked. The flight tickets were non-refundable. Our families had already celebrated our engagement party just 2 weeks ago. And now, this. I called her 17 times. Every single call went straight to voicemail. I sent her messages, begging her to explain, to talk to me, to give me one chance to understand what went wrong. Nothing. She had completely ghosted me. 3 days later, I saw the truth plastered all over social media. Clara was not hiding. She was not ashamed. She was glowing. In the photos, she was wrapped around another man, someone I had never seen before. The captions were worse. "Finally found someone who matches my standards. Living my best life. No regrets." My chest felt like it was caving in. I could not breathe. I could not think. The woman I was supposed to marry in a few weeks had not just left me. She had humiliated me. She had made sure the entire world knew I was not good enough. But what she did not know, what nobody knew, was that I was not the nobody she thought I was. I had kept my background hidden for years, wanting someone to love me for who I am, not for my family name or my wealth. Clara thought she had traded up. She thought she had found someone better. She had no idea what was coming. And neither did her new lover. Because the man she thought was beneath her was about to show her exactly who Jimmy really was. My name is Jimmy, and I have spent the last 5 years pretending to be ordinary. I grew up in one of the wealthiest families in the country, but I never wanted that life to define me. My father built an empire from nothing, turning a small shipping company into a multinational conglomerate worth billions. My mother came from old money, the kind of family that had estates and generational wealth that stretched back centuries. Together, they created something unstoppable. And I was their only son. But I hated the spotlight. I hated the fake smiles, the people who only wanted to be close to me because of my last name, the endless business dinners where everyone treated me like a walking bank account. So when I turned 23, I made a decision. I told my parents I wanted to live like a normal person for a while. I wanted to see what life was like without the family name hanging over me. They were not happy about it, but they agreed. My father made me promise I would come back when I was ready. My mother cried and told me to be careful. I moved to a different city, rented a modest apartment, and got a job as a financial analyst at a mid-sized firm. I used a different last name, kept my head down, and lived simply. No one knew who I really was. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. That is when I met Clara. She was beautiful, confident, and ambitious. She worked in marketing at the same company, and from the moment I saw her, I was drawn to her. She had this energy, this spark, that made everyone around her pay attention. We started talking during lunch breaks, and soon we were spending every evening together. She told me about her dreams, about how she wanted to build her own brand, about how she refused to settle for anything less than extraordinary. I fell in love with her. Completely. For 3 years, we built a life together. I supported her ambitions. I helped her with her projects. I listened to her talk about her goals for hours. I thought we were partners. I thought we were building something real. She moved into my apartment after a year, and we started planning our future. Marriage. A home. Maybe. Kids someday. I thought she loved me for who I was, not for what I had. I was wrong. Clara came from a complicated family. Her father had remarried when she was 15, after her mother passed away from illness. Her stepmother, Janet, was only 10 years older than Clara, and their relationship had always been tense. Clara hated her. She called her a gold digger, said she had only married her father for his money. I met Janet a few times at family dinners, and honestly, I never understood Clara's hatred. Janet was polite, elegant, and surprisingly kind. She never treated Clara with anything but respect, even when Clara openly insulted her. But Clara refused to see it. She was convinced Janet had ruined her family, stolen her father's attention, and taken what should have been hers. She talked about it constantly. Sometimes I wondered if her obsession with wealth and status came from watching Janet live the life Clara thought she deserved. I never told Clara about my family. I wanted her to love me, not my money. I wanted to know that when she said yes to marrying me, it was because she wanted to spend her life with me, not because she saw me as a ticket to a better life. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought our love was pure. But now, looking back, I realize how naive I was. The week after Clara sent me that breakup text, I tried to move on. I went to work. I avoided social media. I threw myself into projects, worked late nights. Anything to keep my mind off the pain. My coworkers noticed something was wrong, but I brushed them off. I did not want to talk about it. I did not want anyone's pity. Then, one evening, my phone rang. It was Janet. I was surprised. Janet and I had exchanged numbers once at a family gathering, but we had never spoken outside of those formal dinners. I hesitated before answering, wondering if something had happened to Clara's father. "Jimmy," Janet's voice was soft, almost hesitant. "I hope I am not bothering you. I just wanted to check if you were okay. I heard about what happened with Clara." I did not know what to say. I stood there in my apartment, staring out the window, gripping the phone. "I am fine," I lied. "Thank you for asking." There was a pause. Then she spoke again, and this time her voice was firmer. "Jimmy, I know we do not know each other well, but I want you to know something. What Clara did was wrong. You did not deserve that. You are a good man." Something about the way she said it broke through the wall I had been building around myself. My throat tightened. "I do not feel like a good man right now," I admitted. "I feel like an idiot." "You are not an idiot," Janet said gently. "You loved someone who did not appreciate you. That does not make you foolish. That makes you human." We talked for over an hour that night. She told me she had always thought Clara treated me poorly, that she had noticed how Clara constantly criticized me, how she always seemed to be looking for something better. Janet apologized for not saying anything sooner. She said she had wanted to, but she did not think it was her place. I appreciated her honesty. For the first time, since the breakup, I did not feel completely alone. Over the next few weeks, Janet and I started talking more. At first, it was just friendly conversations, checking in on each other, but slowly, something shifted. I found myself looking forward to her calls. I started opening up to her in ways I had never opened up to anyone. She listened without judgment. She understood pain in a way most people did not. One evening, she invited me to dinner. "Nothing formal," she said. "Just two people who could use some company." I agreed. That dinner changed everything. The restaurant Janet chose was quiet and elegant, tucked away in a part of the city I rarely visited. When I arrived, she was already seated, wearing a simple black dress that somehow made her look more stunning than any of the extravagant outfits Clara used to wear. She smiled when she saw me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than pain. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down across from her. "I know this might seem strange." "It does not feel strange," I replied honestly. "It feels like exactly what I needed." We talked about everything that night. She told me about her life before she married Clara's father. About how she had worked her way through college, how she had built a career in interior design before giving it up to support her husband. She told me about the loneliness of being in a marriage where your stepdaughter hates you, where every family gathering feels like walking into a battlefield. I opened up too. I told her about my family. About why I had been hiding my background. About how I had thought Clara loved me for who I was. Janet listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. "Jimmy," she said softly. "You deserve someone who sees your worth. Not someone who only sees what you can give them." Her hand was warm. Her eyes were sincere. And in that moment, something shifted between us. We started seeing each other more often after that. At first, I told myself it was just friendship, that we were both lonely and leaning on each other for support. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I was falling for her. And I think she was falling for me too. 2 months after Clara left me, Janet and I were sitting in her car after another dinner. The city lights reflected off the windshield, and the silence between us was comfortable. Then, suddenly, she turned to me. "Jimmy, I need to tell you something." I looked at her, my heart pounding. "What is it?" "I am getting a divorce." I stared at her in shock. "What?" She nodded, her expression calm but her eyes filled with emotion. "I have been unhappy for years. Clara's father and I have not been a real couple in a long time. We stay together for appearances, for business reasons. But I cannot do it anymore. I deserve to be happy. And so do you." Before I could respond, she leaned over and kissed me. It was soft at first, hesitant, like she was asking permission. But then I kissed her back, and everything else disappeared. All the pain, all the heartbreak, all the months of feeling like I was not good enough, it all melted away. When we finally pulled apart, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I should not have done that." I shook my head and cupped her face in my hands. "Do not apologize. I have wanted to do that for weeks." We spent that night together. And the next. And the one after that. What started as comfort turned into something deeper, something real. For the first time since Clara left, I felt like I could breathe again. 3 months later, Janet's divorce was finalized, and 1 week after that, I asked her to marry me. I did not do it the traditional way. I did not get down on one knee in a fancy restaurant or plan some elaborate proposal. We were sitting on the balcony of her apartment, watching the sunset, and I just turned to her and said it. "Marry me, Janet." She looked at me like I had lost my mind. "Jimmy, are you serious?" "I have never been more serious about anything in my life." She laughed, tears streaming down her face, and nodded. "Yes. Yes. I will marry you." We got married 2 weeks later. It was a small ceremony, just close friends, and my parents. My mother cried tears of joy when she met Janet. My father shook her hand and told her she was the best thing that ever happened to me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But we both knew the storm was coming. Because Clara had no idea. She had no idea her stepmother had divorced her father. She had no idea Janet and I were together. And she definitely had no idea we were now married. The truth came out 3 weeks after our wedding. Clara had been living her best life with Michael, the man she had left me for. He was wealthy, successful, and exactly the kind of person Clara had always wanted. She posted about him constantly, flaunting their relationship like a trophy. I had stopped looking at her social media, but Janet still checked it occasionally, just to keep tabs on what Clara was up to. One day, Janet showed me a post. Clara had announced she was getting engaged to Michael. The photo showed her holding up a massive diamond ring, grinning like she had won the lottery. The caption read, "Finally found someone who knows my worth." I felt nothing. No anger, no jealousy, nothing. That part of my life was over. But Janet had a different idea. She looked at me with a mischievous smile and said, "I think it is time we made an announcement of our own." The next day, we posted a photo on social media. It was from our wedding day, a beautiful shot of the two of us smiling at each other, completely lost in the moment. Janet's caption was simple but devastating. "Married the love of my life. Could not be happier." Within an hour, Clara's phone calls started flooding in. Janet ignored every single one. So did I. We knew exactly what was coming, and we were ready. 2 days later, Clara showed up at Janet's apartment, pounding on the door like her life depended on it. Janet opened it calmly, and I stood beside her. Clara's face was red, her eyes wild with fury. "What the hell is this?" she screamed, shoving her phone in Janet's face. "You married him? You married my ex?" Janet smiled sweetly. "Yes, I did. And I have never been happier." Clara turned to me, her expression twisted with rage and disbelief. "Jimmy, what are you doing? How could you do this to me?" I looked at her calmly, feeling absolutely nothing. "You left me, Clara. You humiliated me. You made it very clear I was not good enough for you. So I moved on. And I found someone who actually appreciates me. She is my stepmother." Clara shrieked. "This is disgusting." Janet stepped forward, her voice icy. "I am your former stepmother. I divorced your father. And now I am Jimmy's wife. You have no say in my life anymore." Clara stood there, trembling with rage, unable to form words. And then, she did something I never expected. She started crying. Watching Clara break down in front of me should have felt satisfying. After everything she had put me through, after the humiliation, the heartbreak, the months of questioning my worth, seeing her cry should have been the revenge I needed. But instead, I felt nothing. Not pity. Not anger. Just a cold, empty detachment. She collapsed against the doorframe, her shoulders shaking as she sobbed. "This cannot be happening," she choked out between gasps. "This is insane. You two are insane." Janet stood completely still, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. I had learned over the past few months that Janet was not someone who showed her emotions easily. She had spent years in a loveless marriage, enduring Clara's hostility and her husband's indifference. She had perfected the art of keeping her walls up, but I could see the faint flicker of something in her eyes. Not guilt. Not regret. But maybe a trace of sadness for the girl Clara used to be, before bitterness consumed her. I took a step forward. "Clara, you need to leave." She looked up at me, mascara streaking down her face, her eyes desperate. "Jimmy, please. Please tell me this is some kind of sick joke. Tell me you are just trying to hurt me. Why would I try to hurt you? I asked calmly. You made it very clear you did not want me. You left me a month before our wedding. You did not even have the decency to tell me to my face. You just disappeared and moved on like I never mattered. Because you did not matter. She screamed, her voice raw. You were never enough, Jimmy. I stayed with you because I thought you had potential. But you were always just average. And then Michael came along, and I realized what I had been missing. Someone successful. Someone important. Someone who could actually give me the life I deserve. Her words hit the air like poison, and I saw Janet's jaw tighten. But I did not flinch. Because I had heard it all before, in my own head, during the endless nights I spent questioning why I was not good enough. And now you are with her, Clara continued, pointing a shaking finger at Janet, my stepmother, the woman who destroyed my family. Do you have any idea how pathetic that makes you look? I destroyed your family? Janet finally spoke, her voice low and controlled. Clara, your father, and I had not been in love for years. Our marriage was a formality. He married me because he was lonely after your mother died, and I married him because I thought I could make it work. But you made sure I knew every single day that I was not welcome. You treated me like I was dirt. And your father let you. Clara laughed bitterly. Because you did not belong. You were just some woman who showed up and tried to replace my mother. I never tried to replace your mother, Janet said, her voice breaking slightly for the first time. I tried to be your friend. I tried to support you, and you spat in my face every chance you got. The silence that followed was suffocating. Clara stood there, her chest heaving, her eyes flickering between Janet and me. And then, her expression shifted. The desperation melted away, replaced by something colder. Something calculating. Fine, she said, her voice suddenly steady. You want to be together? Go ahead. But do not think for a second that this is over. Michael and I are getting married. And when we do, you are both going to regret this. She turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her so hard the walls shook. Janet let out a long breath and sank onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. I sat down beside her, placing a hand on her back. Are you okay? I asked softly. She nodded, but I could see her hands trembling. I knew this would be hard, she whispered, but hearing her say those things. It still hurts. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly. She does not deserve your pain, Janet. She does not deserve anything from you. We sat like that for a long time, the weight of Clara's words lingering in the air. And for the first time since we had gotten married, I felt the full gravity of what we had done. We had not just started a relationship. We had declared war. Over the next few weeks, Clara launched a campaign against us. She told everyone who would listen that Janet had stolen me from her, that I had been cheating on her with her stepmother the entire time, that we were both disgusting and morally bankrupt. She posted cryptic messages on social media, calling us out without naming us directly. Her friends rallied around her, flooding our pages with hateful comments. But the worst part was not the public humiliation. It was the private messages. Clara sent me dozens of texts, alternating between begging me to come back and threatening to ruin my life. She called me in the middle of the night, crying, saying she had made a mistake. She showed up at my workplace, causing a scene in the lobby until security escorted her out. Janet dealt with it better than I did. She blocked Clara on everything, refused to engage, and focused on moving forward, but I could see the toll it was taking on her. She stopped sleeping well. She started losing weight. And no matter how many times I told her we were doing the right thing, I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. One night, I woke up to find her sitting on the balcony, staring out at the city, tears streaming down her face. I walked over and knelt beside her. Talk to me. She shook her head. I just keep thinking. What if she is right? What if we are terrible people? We are not terrible people, I said firmly. We fell in love. That is not a crime. But I was her stepmother. Jimmy. She wiped her eyes. No matter how much I tell myself it is, okay, part of me feels like I crossed a line. I took her hands in mine, forcing her to look at me. Janet, you were miserable in that marriage. You were trapped. And Clara never cared about your happiness. She only cares about herself. You do not owe her anything. She searched my eyes, looking for reassurance. And I gave it to her, over and over, until she finally believed me. But deep down, I knew this was not over. Clara was not the type to let things go. And Michael, whoever he was now part of this mess too. I had no idea what they were planning, but I knew it was coming. And I was ready. 2 months after our confrontation with Clara, Janet and I were finally starting to find some peace. The hateful messages had slowed down. Clara had stopped showing up, unannounced. For the first time since we had gotten married, it felt like we could breathe. We started planning a real future together. Janet talked about reopening her interior design business. I started considering whether it was time to reveal my true identity and step back into my family's company. Life was beginning to feel normal. Then, one evening, my father called. "Jimmy, we need to talk." His voice was serious, the kind of tone that made my stomach drop. "What is going on?" I asked, stepping out onto the balcony where Janet could not hear. "I just got a very interesting phone call," he said slowly. "From a man named Michael Chen." My blood ran cold. Michael. Clara's fiancé. What did he want? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He wanted to know if I was aware that my son had married the ex-wife of one of our business partners. I froze. What? Clara's father, my dad continued, is David Liu. He runs Liu Enterprises. We have been working with him for years. And, apparently, Michael Chen is his new business protege. He has been positioning himself to take over parts of David's company. And now, Michael is telling me that you have caused a scandal by marrying David's ex-wife. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I knew Janet's ex-husband was wealthy, but I had no idea he was connected to my family's business. I had never asked for details. I had not wanted to dig into her past. And now, it was coming back to haunt us. "Dad, I can explain." "You do not need to explain anything to me," my father said firmly. "I do not care who you married. But you need to understand something, Jimmy. Michael is trying to use this situation to damage our relationship with Liu Enterprises. He is painting you and Janet as homewreckers, saying you destroyed David's family. And David is furious." My chest tightened. This was worse than I thought. "What do you want me to do?" I asked quietly. There was a long pause. Then my father said, "I want you to come home. It is time to stop hiding. If Michael wants to play games, we will show him exactly who he is dealing with." I hung up the phone and stood there for a moment, staring out at the city lights. My hands were shaking. Everything I had built over the past 5 years, the normal life, the anonymity, the freedom, it was all about to disappear. Janet opened the door behind me. "Jimmy, what is wrong?" I turned to face her, and the look on my face must have said everything because her expression immediately shifted to concern. "We need to talk," I said. I told her everything. About my family. About the company. About the fact that I was not just some regular financial analyst, but the heir to one of the largest corporate empires in the country. I told her about my father's call. About Michael's accusations. About the fact that her ex-husband was connected to my family's business. She listened in complete silence, her face growing paler with every word. When I finished, she just stared at me. "Why did you not tell me this before?" "Because I wanted you to love me for me," I said. "Not for my name. Not for my money." "Jimmy, I divorced a wealthy man," she said, her voice trembling. "Do you really think money matters to me?" "I know," I said quickly. "I know that now. But when we first got together, I was still hurting. I was still afraid of being used. I am sorry." She stood up and paced the room, running her hands through her hair. "So what happens now? What does your father want you to do?" "He wants me to come back. He wants me to take my place in the company. And he wants us to face this head on." Janet stopped pacing and looked at me. "And what do you want?" I walked over to her and took her hands in mine. "I want to protect you. I want to make sure Clara and Michael do not destroy what we have built. And if that means revealing who I really am, then that is what I will do." Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "Okay. Then let us do it, together." The next week, I returned to my family's estate for the first time in 5 years. My mother cried when she saw me. My father shook my hand and pulled me into a rare embrace. And then, we got to work. My father arranged a meeting with David Liu. It was tense and formal, held in a private conference room at our company's headquarters. David walked in looking older than I remembered, his face lined with exhaustion. Michael was with him, dressed in an expensive suit, his expression smug. "David," my father said, shaking his hand. "Thank you for coming." David nodded stiffly. "I am only here because of our business relationship. Otherwise, I would not be in the same room as your son." "I understand," my father said calmly. "But I think there has been a misunderstanding. And I would like to clear it up." Michael leaned back in his chair, smirking. "There is no misunderstanding. Your son married my fiancé's stepmother. He destroyed their family." My father turned to me and nodded. I stood up, my heart pounding. "Mr. Liu," I said, looking directly at David. "I did not destroy your family. Your marriage was already over when Janet and I met. She has told me everything. You and she had not been in love for years. You stayed together for appearances. And Clara made her life miserable. David's jaw tightened, but he did not respond. I continued. Janet divorced you because she deserved to be happy, and I fell in love with her because she is an incredible woman. What Clara is telling you is not the truth. She left me, humiliated me, and moved on without a second thought. And now she is angry because I found happiness with someone else. Michael slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. You are just trying to cover up your own guilt. My father leaned forward, his voice cold. Mr. Chen, I suggest you watch your tone. You are in my building. And if you continue to spread lies about my son, I will make sure you never work in this industry again. Michael's smug expression faltered. David finally spoke, his voice weary. Janet did ask for a divorce. And I gave it to her. But Clara is my daughter. And she is hurt. I understand that, I said, but Clara is not innocent in this. She has been harassing Janet and me for months. She has spread lies, sent threatening messages, and tried to ruin our lives. At some point, you have to ask yourself if you are protecting your daughter or enabling her cruelty. David looked at me for a long moment. Then he turned to Michael. Is this true? Has Clara been harassing them? Michael hesitated, and that hesitation told David everything he needed to know. David stood up, his expression weary. I need to talk to my daughter. He walked out without another word. Michael followed, but not before shooting me a venomous glare. After they left, my father turned to me. You handled that well. But I knew this was not over. Not by a long shot. 3 days after the meeting with David Liu, Clara made her move. And it was bigger than anything I could have anticipated. I was at the office, working through some reports my father had asked me to review, when my assistant knocked on the door. Her face was pale. Mr. Jimmy, you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, and my stomach dropped. Clara had gone to the press. The headlines were everywhere. Billionaire heir steals stepmom from business partner. Family torn apart by scandal. Jimmy Carter. Secret heir. Exposed. She had not just exposed my identity. She had twisted the entire story, painting me as a manipulative predator, who had seduced Janet while she was still married, who had destroyed a family for my own selfish desires. She had given interviews, provided fake timelines, even found people willing to lie and say they had seen Janet and me together before her divorce was finalized. The media ate it up. Within hours, my name was trending online. Photos of me, Janet, Clara, and even David were plastered across every news outlet. The comment sections were vicious. People I had never met were calling me a homewrecker, a liar, a disgrace. I called Janet immediately. Have you seen it? Her voice was shaking. Yes. Jimmy, they are outside my apartment. There are reporters everywhere. I cannot leave. Stay inside, I said firmly. I am coming to get you. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, but my father stopped me. Jimmy, wait. Dad, I have to go. I know, he said, but you need to be smart about this. If you go out there and make a scene, it will only make things worse. Let me handle the press. You focus on protecting Janet. He was right. I nodded and took the back exit, avoiding the reporters who were already gathering outside the building. When I got to Janet's apartment, it was chaos. Cameras, microphones. Shouting reporters. I pushed through them, ignoring their questions. And made it to her door. She opened it immediately and pulled me inside. Her face was streaked with tears. Jimmy, I cannot do this. I cannot handle this. I held her tightly. Yes, you can. We are going to get through this. But even as I said it, I was not sure I believed it. The damage Clara had done was massive. And Michael had clearly helped her. This was coordinated, calculated, designed to destroy us. That evening, my father called an emergency press conference. I watched it from Janet's apartment, holding her hand as my father stood in front of dozens of cameras. He was calm, composed, every bit the powerful businessman he had always been. I am here to address the false accusations that have been made against my son, he began. Jimmy Carter is not the man Clara Liu is describing. He is a man of integrity, who walked away from wealth and privilege because he wanted to live an authentic life. He fell in love with Janet Liu after her divorce was finalized. There was no affair. There was no betrayal. And I have the legal documents to prove it. He held up copies of Janet's divorce papers, showing the finalized date. He also presented text messages, emails, and even security footage that contradicted Clara's timeline. Clara Liu has been harassing my son and his wife for months, my father continued. She has sent threatening messages, shown up at their home, and now she has gone to the press with lies. This is not about justice. This is about revenge. And I will not allow my family to be dragged through the mud because of one woman's bitterness." The room exploded with questions, but my father did not answer them. He simply walked off the stage, leaving the reporters scrambling. Janet squeezed my hand. "Do you think it will work?" "I do not know," I admitted. "But it is a start." Over the next 2 days, the narrative began to shift. People started questioning Clara's story. Journalists dug into the timeline and found inconsistencies. Some of Clara's so-called witnesses were exposed as people she had paid to lie. Public opinion started to turn. But Clara was not done. She posted a tearful video online, claiming she was the victim, that my family was using their power to silence her. She said she just wanted justice for what had been done to her family. It was a masterclass in manipulation. And it worked. Half the internet rallied around her. The other half defended me. It became a war. Then, Michael made a mistake. He gave an interview where he claimed that Janet had always been a gold digger, that she had manipulated David Liu into marrying her, and that she had done the same thing to me. He said I was just her next target, and that she would leave me the moment someone richer came along. It was a vicious, baseless attack. And it was the opening I needed. Because Michael did not know that Janet had kept everything. Every email. Every text. Every piece of evidence from her marriage to David. And some of those messages were from Michael himself. Janet had shown them to me weeks ago, but I had not known what to do with them. Now, I did. I called my father. "I have something. Something that will end this." The next day, we released the messages. They showed Michael flirting with Janet while she was still married to David. They showed him trying to convince her to leave David and be with him instead. They showed him calling her beautiful, telling her she deserved better, promising her the world. And they were dated months before Janet ever filed for divorce. The fallout was immediate. Michael's credibility was destroyed. People who had supported Clara started questioning her judgment. David Liu, who had been staying silent, finally spoke out, confirming that Michael had pursued Janet while she was still his wife, and that he had fired Michael from his company as a result. Clara's entire narrative collapsed. She tried to defend Michael, tried to claim the messages were fake, but no one believed her anymore. And then, the final blow came. David Liu released a statement. "I owe Janet an apology. She was a good wife, and I failed her. My daughter has been blinded by bitterness, and I take responsibility for enabling her behavior. Jimmy Carter is not the villain here. He is simply a man who fell in love with a woman who deserved to be loved. I wish them both happiness." It was over. Clara had lost. Michael had lost. And Janet and I were finally free. The weeks following the scandal were surreal. The media frenzy slowly died down, replaced by new stories, new scandals. Clara disappeared from public view. Some said she had moved abroad with Michael. Others said they had broken up and gone their separate ways. I did not care. She was no longer my problem. David Liu reached out to Janet privately and apologized. It was a brief, awkward conversation, but it gave her some closure. He admitted that he had been a distant husband, that he had let Clara poison their home, and that he regretted not standing up for Janet sooner. She thanked him, but she made it clear that chapter of her life was closed. As for me, I stepped fully into my role at my family's company. My father announced me as his successor, and the business world welcomed me back. Some people whispered about the scandal, but most respected the way my family had handled it. We had fought back with truth, not lies. And we had won. Janet reopened her interior design firm, and within months, she had more clients than she could handle. She was thriving, glowing, more confident than I had ever seen her. Watching her reclaim her life was one of the greatest joys of mine. One evening, about 6 months after everything had settled, I came home to find Janet sitting on the couch, holding a small box. She looked up at me with a nervous smile. "I have something to tell you." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" She handed me the box. I opened it, and inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes. I stared at them, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. Then it hit me. I looked up at her, my eyes wide. "Are you?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I am pregnant." I dropped to my knees in front of her, pulling her into my arms. I was overwhelmed, overjoyed, terrified, all at once. "We are going to have a baby." She laughed through her tears. "Yes. We are going to have a baby." That night, we talked for hours about the future. About names, about nurseries, about how our lives were about to change in the most beautiful way. And for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. My parents were ecstatic when we told them. My mother cried and immediately started planning everything. My father, who rarely showed emotion, had tears in his eyes as he shook my hand. "You are going to be a great father," he said. But there was one person I had not expected to hear from. 1 week after we announced the pregnancy, I received a letter. It was addressed to me, handwritten, with no return address. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. It was from Clara. The letter was long, rambling, filled with contradictions. She apologized for the pain she had caused, but then blamed me for ruining her life. She said she had loved me, but then admitted she had only stayed with me because she thought I had potential. She said she was happy with Michael, but then mentioned they had broken up. She said she regretted everything, but then insisted she had done nothing wrong. It was the letter of someone who still had not learned anything. Someone who was still trapped in her own bitterness. I read it once, then folded it up, and put it in a drawer. I did not respond. There was nothing left to say. Janet asked me about it later that night. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "I am. She is still the same person she always was, and I am grateful I am not part of her life anymore." Janet kissed me softly. "So am I." 9 months later, our daughter was born. We named her Sophie. She had Janet's eyes and my smile, and the moment I held her, I knew that every painful moment I had gone through had been worth it. Because it had all led me here. To this family. To this life. Clara sent a gift when she heard about Sophie's birth. It was an expensive baby blanket. With a card that said, "Congratulations. I hope you are happy." I donated the blanket to charity. I did not want anything from her in my daughter's life. Years passed. Sophie grew into a smart, curious, beautiful little girl. Janet's business flourished. My role in the company expanded. We bought a house, traveled the world, built a life filled with love and laughter. And then, one day, I ran into Clara. It was at a charity event. I was there with Janet, and Clara was there alone. She looked older, tired, like life had worn her down. She saw me from across the room, and for a moment, our eyes met. She walked over, hesitant. "Jimmy." "Hi." "Clara," I said, keeping my voice neutral. She looked at Janet, then back at me. "I just wanted to say, I am sorry, for everything." Janet placed a hand on my arm, a silent reminder that she was there, that we were in this together. I nodded. "Thank you. I appreciate that." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I made so many mistakes. I threw away something real because I thought I deserved more. And now I have nothing." I felt a pang of something. Not quite pity, but not quite indifference either. "Clara," I said gently, "I hope you find what you are looking for. I really do. But that part of my life is over. I have moved on. And I am happy." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I can see that. You look happy." "I am," I said, "and I hope someday you will be too." She walked away, and I watched her go. Janet leaned into me. "Are you okay?" I wrapped my arm around her. "I am more than okay. I have everything I ever wanted." And I meant it. Because in the end, Clara did not destroy me. She freed me. She freed me to find someone who actually valued me, who saw me for who I really was, who loved me without conditions. She dumped me before our honeymoon. She thought she was upgrading. But I was the one who found something real. I married the woman who became my partner. My best friend, my everything. And Clara? She became nothing more than a footnote in my story. A story that ended not with revenge, but with the ultimate victory, a life filled with love, happiness, and a family I would protect with everything I had.